For more physics-related videos, please subscribe. Welcome to the Physics Almanac. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of kinematics, specifically position, velocity, and acceleration, and how they relate to one another. I've rated the physics level in this video as easiest. So, position, velocity, and acceleration. These are all terms we are used to every day, but how are they defined specifically in physics? Let's imagine we have a ball that's moving along some path, which I'm going to call S. The position is a vector or an arrow that points from some reference point to the ball. Now this position R is a vector, meaning it has a length and it points in some direction. Now if you don't know what a vector is or are not comfortable with vector operations, check out my previous video where I covered vectors and vector operations required for basic kinematic problems. So getting back to this position, it's a vector and it's a function of time. Depending on what time it is, the ball will be at a different location. For example, let's say that at a later time, the ball is over here. And let's say that the time that has elapsed between this position and this final position is delta t. So this is r at time t plus delta t. The change in position is the final position minus the original position. If you watched my previous video on vectors, you know how to subtract vectors. This negative sign means you run backwards along r at time t, so backwards along this arrow, and then forwards along r at time t plus delta t. And the resultant vector is a vector that points from your original position to your final position. Now let's say that delta t is instead very small, so the ball has barely moved. In fact, we're going to say that delta t is so small it's basically just a split second. It's almost zero. It's infinitesimally small. In this case, we use a special notation where we change this delta t, which just means a change in t, to dt. So dt tells us that the change in t is infinitesimally small. It's a split second, almost nothing. In that infinitesimally small time, the ball has moved an infinitesimally small amount, dr. If we now divide dr by this time elapsed dt, we get the definition of velocity. So velocity is the instantaneous rate of change of position. And notice, it is also a vector. It has a direction and a magnitude. If you're at all familiar with calculus, you'll recognize that this is the time derivative of position. If you don't know anything about calculus, the derivative is just another word for the slope on a graph of position versus time. So the velocity is the slope of the position if plotted versus time. Now, as I said, velocity is a vector. It has a length and a direction. Its length, or its magnitude, is its speed. So the speed and the velocity are not the same thing. The velocity tells you how fast an object is moving and in what direction. The speed is just how fast it's moving. You don't know what direction it's moving in. It's very important you understand the difference between the two. I guarantee you your physics professor will test you on this. If this video is helping you out so far, please like and subscribe, maybe share it with some of your classmates. Now, since the speed and the velocity are different, the average speed and the average velocity are different. For one, the speed is not a vector, it's a scalar, it's a number. The velocity is a vector. And the average velocity, it turns out, is the net displacement divided by the total time it took to go from one point to the other. So in this case, if we're going from our original point to this point over here, the average velocity would be this vector delta r divided by the time it took to run along this path s. The average speed is the total distance traveled divided by the time. So that would be the length of this path s divided by the time it took, again, to run along that path S. To give you another example, if we go back to my previous video on vectors, I had this map where I drew different paths to go from this red dot to this blue dot. Now let's take a look at this green path. The average velocity will be the net displacement, which is this white vector r, divided by the time it took to run along this green path. The average speed will be the sum of the lengths of all of these individual green vectors, divided again by that same time, the time it took to run along this path. So let's say, for example, someone ran directly from the red dot to the blue dot, so they went along this path r. and it took them the same amount of time as another person who took this green path. The net displacement for both is r, and since it took the same amount of time, they both have the same average velocity. However, they don't have the same average speed, because the distance traveled by the guy going along this green path is longer than the distance traveled by the guy going along vector r. So now we understand what velocity is and how it differs from speed. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I guarantee you your physics professor will test you on the difference between speed and velocity, so be sure you understand this. We can now move on to acceleration. Well, if you understand how velocity relates to position, acceleration is easy, because acceleration is to velocity what velocity is to position. So to get the acceleration, we do the exact same analysis we did here, we just replace r with v and v with a. So a equals the instantaneous rate of change of velocity. And again, it's a vector. It has a length or magnitude and it points in some direction. So a is the time derivative or the slope of v. If you plot a graph of v versus time, the acceleration will be the slope. So velocity is the slope of position and acceleration is the slope of velocity. So let's actually plot this out so we can understand it. I'm going to do this in one dimension to make it easier. First, I'm going to draw 3 separate plots. And on the horizontal axis, I'm going to put time for all 3 plots. On the vertical axis, I'm going to put position, velocity, and acceleration. And since we're only doing this in one dimension, let's just say I'm plotting the x position, or the horizontal position. Now, let's say that the position graph versus time looks something like this. And now we want to get the velocity. Well, remember, the velocity is the slope of the position. So all we have to do is plot the slope on this graph. Well, slope is rise over run. As we can see, this vertical component is the change in x, and this horizontal component is the change in time. So we have v equals dx over dt, which is the slope. But the slope is not the same everywhere here, so we got to break this up. For this first piece, dx is equal to 3, and dt is equal to 2, so the slope is 3/2. So we can say that initially the velocity is 3/2. Then the line goes flat, the position is flat, so the slope is 0, which means the velocity drops down to 0. That means that this object is not moving, at least not in the x direction. Now we have a negative slope equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grid lines, and again over 2 seconds, or 2 time units, I should say. So -5 divided by 2 is a slope of -5/2. Now something funny happens. We have a curved line. So what exactly does it mean to take the slope of a curved line? Now actually, the velocity is not the slope of x, but it's the instantaneous slope of x. So to get that, we take some point along this curve, let's just say it's here, and we draw a tangent line to the curve going through that point. And the velocity will be the slope of that line. So notice that this slope will change along this curve, so we no longer have a constant slope. Now for the sake of this problem, let's just say that this curve turns out to be a parabola. Well, it turns out that the slope of a parabola changes at a constant rate, meaning that the plot of the slope has a constant slope. And what has a constant slope? A line. So the next piece will be a line, and the slope starts off horizontal, so it starts with a slope of 0. So the next piece of the velocity will be a line that starts at 0 and increases at a constant slope. And then the final piece, we have a slope of 0 once again. And that's it. That's how you get the velocity graph from the position graph. Now you may be asking, can you go the other way? If you know the velocity, can I get the position? Well, almost. It turns out that the area under the velocity graph is equal to the change in position. So, what is the area under here? We have a height of 3/2 and the width of 2. 3/2 times 2 is 3, so that means we have a change in position of 3. And look at this, we have 1, 2, 3. Our change in x is 3. However, that's just the change in position. We don't know where the starting point is. We don't know if we started at 0 and went up 3, or if we started at -1 and went up 3, or something else. So to go backwards, you take the area under the curve to get the change, But you still need an extra piece of information. You need to know what the starting point is. And one final note, if the area is underneath the time axis, it's negative. So for this piece, the area will be negative. We have 1, 2.5 times 2. So 2.5 is 5 halves times 2. That's 5. And since it's negative, we have a change of -5. And look what we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Change in x of -5. And again, you need to know the starting position. So going from position to velocity is straightforward, but going back the other way, while it's perfectly doable, you need a little extra information. And by the way, taking the area under the curve, we call integration, which is the second half of calculus. So the slope is the derivative, the area under the curve is the integral. If you've taken calculus before, you know this. And if you've never done calculus before, well, you just did. All calculus is differentiation and integration, which means taking the slope and taking the area under the curve. All right, now that we have the velocity, we play the exact same game to get the acceleration, because the acceleration is just the slope of the velocity. So again, we do rise over run. The rise is the change in velocity and the run is the change in time. Rise over run gives us dv over dt. So taking a look at this piece, the change in velocity is 1, 2, 3.5 grid lines, so that's 7 halves, divided by 2 for the change in time. So the slope here is 7/4. Everywhere else, the slope is horizontal, so the slope is 0. Now, before I actually plot the acceleration graph, I just want to point out that this graph of the velocity is actually non-physical because it has these abrupt jumps or discontinuities. Realistically, the velocity graph has to be continuous, and these jumps would correspond to very large instantaneous changes in velocity, which would mean extremely large spikes in the acceleration, either downwards or upwards. Physically, this would correspond to traveling along at some velocity and then suddenly stopping or turning around. So, for example, driving in a car and then smashing into a wall. So you would not want to be traveling along this velocity curve, to say the least. So because I've only made these graphs for illustrative purposes, I'm going to omit these spikes or these discontinuities in the acceleration graph and only look at these flat pieces and then this slanted piece right here. So we get an acceleration graph that's 0 everywhere except for this one piece where it jumps up to 7/4. And as you can see, I've omitted these spikes at the discontinuities. And just like for the velocity and position graphs, I can go backwards and take the area under the acceleration graph to get the velocity curve, so long as we also know the starting points. So now that you know what position, velocity, and acceleration are, we can move on to projectile motion. And the great thing about projectile motion is that actually there's only one equation. If you know that one equation, you can do every single problem. So if you found this video helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe. Click the bell to be notified for the release of future videos. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.